implementing homomorphic encryptions or implementing cryptography, we need policies. I think we have a policy expert. Mr. Ricky will be explanation on that.
Thank you. So I really thank DSCI for putting this panel in place, and thank you so much for coming on a short notice. And thank you, Mayank. And thanks everyone. I know it's a post-lunch session, and usually post-lunch sessions are really slow, but then I really appreciate your time. So I will try to pick up from where Rohan was making a point, and while doing so, I will try to stitch it with policy. And rightly pointed out, we do need policy because any organization, let's say they are into software development or they are into application or product development, to an extent, they will only do things which are largely, closely, dictated by their own policies. So as an organization, I will do a software development in a certain way, which will be loosely linked with my customer's requirement, plus my own internal standard. So you need certain policy for software development at an enterprise level, which will tell your programmers, developers, the ethical way of developing a software and building privacy into it. To answer how exactly we can stitch privacy into a product, I mean, it's beyond, obviously it's beyond encryption, it's beyond other shuffling of information, randomization or noise, putting noise into it. The important thing is, if you flash back, and probably you can relate to it, what happened in late 90s when security emerged. Until then, security was not a functional requirement in most of the applications. But then we saw SDLC shifting its gear and trying to put security somewhere in design phase, somewhere in requirement phase, and all of a sudden security became an objective, and it was part of your project plans when you started developing applications. You started doing those reviews. We will certainly see a gradual shift where privacy will become a non-functional requirement. It will not directly come from a stakeholder, but then as a part of the geography which you're serving, or probably as a part of the nation where your company is based out, you will try to fit in privacy into your product. Now, there are multiple ways of fitting privacy. We spoke about VSD in the morning. So, value-sensitive designing. Fortunately, the privacy by design is a subset of value-sensitive designing, which has three core elements. It simply says that when you design a product or a software, it should be based on a simple pyramid. With the bottom section of pyramid clearly talks about the functional requirement or the large requirement of an application or a software or a product. So if I'm designing a calculator, the functional requirement simply says that it needs to calculate, right? The second thing on that pyramid is norms. You have to develop a software within the industry, within the norms which is regulated. So example, PCI DSS compliance is a norm. ISO 27001 is a norm. And similarly, and subsequently, you have other norms which helps you to regulate or sort of provide guidelines to create a product. But then beyond these things, you need value, and that's where the value-sensitive design comes in picture. The highest pinnacle of that pyramid is values. Eventually, you're designing a product or a service which will be used by human being. You're trying to address a need or a business case or a problem or a solution via a product or a service, but then you have to be sensitive about their values. So privacy by design is one of those things, where you try to create a solution which is, very sensitive to the privacy of an individual or end customer. Now, the policy which we need in order to make sure that these things happen, whatever we are sharing as a thought, it has a larger canvas. You need certain policies at a national level, and I do work with a lot of policies at a different national level, and I have seen different shades across different geographies. But it would be safe to say that these policies, by and large, they have same set of controls in different legislation about privacy. They have a similar outlook. They do vary in certain region or in certain section, primarily because of cultural shiftment. The way privacy is defined in India is very different the way it's defined in Europe. And the way privacy is defined in US is very different than what's defined in Europe. So there's a huge gap in the definition of privacy itself. And those of you who understand privacy, the simple test of that definition to check the vibrance and the various options is when you do a search of definition of personal information. You pick up any piece of law, you pick up PIPEDA, you pick up GDPR, you pick up NIA, you pick up UK Data Protection Act, you pick up POPA from Africa. Everything will define personal information or personal identifiable information or personal data in a different way. And that largely reflects their say or their stature about how close they relate personal information to their life. So when you design a policy, you have to be very cautious that you're culturally aligned with those policies. Plus, you operate in a geography, you operate in a segment which is which is largely sum total of different industries. So if India is contemplating a new privacy law, we will not talk about it obviously, but then the privacy bill, whenever it comes in picture, think about India as a canvas. You have TRAI, you have RBI, you have SEBI. Now you have something in healthcare which is coming in. So you will have a comprehensive federal law which will talk about data protection by large in India, which will guarantee you a fundamental right. But then think about the policies which will come from TRAI, which will regulate your telecom. And if it regulates your telecom, and then if you want to build a privacy by design in the system, any application, be it a healthcare application, be it a BFSI application, you cannot deny the fact that you closely interact with telecom. So does that mean that your application now needs to abide to two different policy? One something which is at a national level, and then one something which is a telecom regulated policy? So there's certainly a trade-off, and let's see how
it's
this
like a
emerge.
domain-specific privacy policies.
Sector specific, I would say.
Sector specifics, yeah.
So typical example, Shri will correct it. Typical example is Japan. Japan has a sector specific model. Canada has a sector specific model. So they have a loose high level thing, which largely provides assurance to their citizen that, okay, we respect your privacy, and we have given guidelines to everyone that, okay, you have to create some policies for your sector specific thing, because we as a parliamentarian, we don't understand how does the industry operate. So let's say law enforcement. Now, the way the privacy works for us and the way the privacy works for you is very different.
Yeah, we intrude everything.
Yeah, exactly. So
I have a tricky question for you.
Yeah, sure.
So you need unique identifier as a whole, or a sector-specific unique identifiers to pick people?
See, good question. So when I define identifier, I have to draw a line that, okay, there's a term called service integrity. So in terms of my service integrity, so let's say if I want to issue someone a phone or a mobile SIM versus if I want to help you to open a bank account, how far I can go in that identifying process? There's a set of risk which is attached to it. So obviously it has to be a risk-based approach where you do a risk analysis and then you collect information. So maybe what happened in Mumbai attack, we saw a case of SIM cloning. Until then, nobody thought, getting a SIM card was very easy in India till that point of time. And thanks to law enforcement, then we got into a provision where we started collecting more information. But then, do you want to collect more information everywhere? So identifier as a term, it has to be sector specific. So I cannot have the same sort of identifier maybe for banking, for telecom, and maybe for simply buying my grocery. If I go to store and if I want to buy a bottle of milk, and if you request me the same set of identifier which I need to open a bank account, then I think there's a cultural issue at the policy level.
So in this privacy topic, people expect the governmental transparency, and the same people are expecting their own privacy.
Right.
And government is nothing but it's made up of people. It's for the people, of the people, and by the people. So is it not contradictory? How this policy can be addressing these issues?
So the answer is a very beautiful statement. I recently read a very interesting definition where they tried, because the industry fights on security and privacy. So we have a constant friction between the security professional and privacy professional, because they are now sort of on a verge where they think, some of the things they complement, some of the things that it's a very different thing. So somebody simply defined that security is making sure it's stopping the unauthorized access of your data. That's security. And the privacy, he defined privacy, that privacy is a counter product or a byproduct or a side effect of authorized use of data. That's privacy. So let's say if I authorize you to use my data, but then I see a side effect of that authorization, that's where the privacy comes in picture. So now I have no issues government, peeping into my privacy. But then I need a transparency that what do you want to do with my data? And then tomorrow, do you want to profile me basis that with that data? Then I have a problem. So, you can pick up example of Russia. Russia practically holds everything about every individual. But then they have the assurance that, you will not be denied a certain right, or you will not be denied a certain privilege because of a racial abuse based on a data. So we need that. In a country like us, we are evolving digitally. So let's see.
When it comes to consent, I come across cases, around 40 cases per day, people sharing their ATM OTP password with some criminals in Bihar, Jharkhand, and they are being looted online, around lakhs. So, we need to give some training and some awareness campaign has to be done. And whether these policies, let it be GDPR or whatever it may be, whether they are focusing on this training and spreading awareness aspect, are they?
They are. So, the beauty about most of the legislations, including the proposed data protection bill, talks about that creating awareness about privacy should be one of the fundamental aspects of any privacy program for any organization. In fact, GDPR puts it as a statute in the law, in the provision itself, an article that you have to make sure that when you talk about org and tech measure in assurance of privacy, the very first thing is staff awareness. Your staff needs to understand that what is critical data, what is privacy, and what are the certain guidelines which are needed for processing those data. Until and unless my staff or my employee or my larger pool of people understand what is privacy, they can't assure me the privacy. Now you talked about consent, and when you talk about consent, everyone talks about consent, but then the first layer of consent is choice. By large, I think most of the application, most of the software, most of the system, most of law enforcement agency, they should also build in a point that where we should have choice. What he stated that, when I go to a website, or maybe, when I go to buy a GeoSIM in India, when I want to get a GeoSIM, I should get an option that, okay, even if I don't have an Aadhaar card, I should be able to get a GeoSIM.
I hope you can now.
Now we can now, thank God, yeah. But then if I go to website and what if I click, I don't accept, will I get a minimum content? Or you will simply put me off saying that, since you click, I don't accept, I will not show you anything. So choice and consent, they go hand in hand.
Okay, thanks Mr. Ricky. I request audience to come up with questions at the end of the session because this is a very debatable topic. So I'm sure there will be a lot of questions. Please reserve it for the last 10-15 minutes. Now I'm going to present you the economic aspects of privacy. So hope you all will be knowing diamond and water paradox. Why diamond is valued more than water? Because of the supply. Diamond is less available and water is more available. But consumerism redefined this concept. We started selling water, we started selling air. We are having pure water bottled and pure air also bottled. Yesterday I read in paper it is coming for around 300 rupees per 10 liters. So similarly, privacy was nowhere. It is with us only. But now because of the recent data breaches and so many other things, we have a sense of fear. And that fear now is making the business, if you need privacy, pay for it. That's actually happening. So the internet, data sharing and security breaches, all these things have put our privacy under threat. So privacy is a non-renewable resource. Once it is gone, it's gone forever. So I hope this topic will be, you will be treated seriously at all levels, at the business as well as at the government. Because your data lies in the database, and if you know that the data will stay there for long, it creates a sense of fear in me. So there should be an end to that